AI and Gen AI are often seen as game changers, dramatically increasing efficiency, speeding up processes, improving fraud detection and more. But what are the risks and how to deploy it in a responsible way? Antonio Cano is Managing Director Europe at Ageas, the international insurance company headquartered in Belgium. He will share his perspective on the opportunities and limits of AI for the insurance industry, sharing learnings and insights from various initiatives at Ageas. Please welcome Antonio Cano.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to apologize for being one day late. I was initially planned to present to you yesterday, but I was just late. There's no excuse. But ITCDI showed quite a remarkable agility, so they still find me a slot for you, and I'm happy that there's also some audience. So I'm Antonio Cano. I work at Ageas. Used to be known as Fortis. About 10 years ago, we were a banking and insurance group. Today, we are an insurance group active in some European markets and in Asia. And actually, my presentation is going to be about how we look at Gen AI specifically, or you'll see some read across to more generic AI topics. And I'm fortunate to be in many boards with operating companies within the group, with also Asian joint ventures, so I can share with you a bit what the common view is of all these boards on this topic. And already want to tell you, boards, senior management in general, you should not overestimate their knowledge about AI, let alone Gen AI. You should not underestimate the interest, enthusiasm, and anxiety about this topic. So that's a first message. I'll try to explain, so what is this actually, Gen AI? Is this really something very different from what we've seen before? Is this the next mobile phone? Is this the next internet? Or is it more like the blockchain, which is still, let's face it, kind of a technology searching for a solution? So what is it? I'll share you some of the risks. There are many risks, but I'll zoom in on just two of them. And then a bit the cost-benefit analysis of how people look at Gen AI. Is it really worthwhile? Do we really have to invest a lot in it, or is it just a fad? It is not something new. Gen AI is just the latest subset of AI, something that started already in about 57. Actually, we within the group, and I see Christina here, I used to work at her company. We were using already in the early 90s neural network OCR technology to read like medical questionnaires, and about 80% of them were properly interpreted. In the UK, already for quite some years, we knew like natural language models or software to actually interpret speech and translate that to text and to structured data, already for quite some years. But now we really see an acceleration in use cases. Everybody knows ChatGPT, etc. So it is different. In what sense it is different? Well, definitely is going very, very, very fast. ChatGPT had in 5 days 1 million users. Second in line, I think it might be TikTok or Instagram. It took them about a couple of weeks, which is already quite remarkable. It is going very fast. So that's kind of unique. The second thing, you see this market cap of companies somehow involved in this space, and things are moving very quickly. Friday, I would have said to you, what's the most valuable company on the planet? That's Microsoft. What was the second? NVIDIA. I think on Tuesday, I would have said, well, it has changed, because Apple, Jim Cook announced, and now AI for the rest of us, and Apple had a mind-blowing 150 billion increase in their market cap. They're over 3 trillion, that's 3,000 billion worth. So just a phrase, huh? Yeah, and the collaboration with OpenAI. And then the rest, you've got Amazon and you've got Google, I should say Alphabet. So these market caps are crazy. These are all profitable companies, so it's not just air. But the market has very high expectations of this technology. So the market believes this is something very big. And the market's not always right, but better not bet against the market. Also something quite unique, I think, is the perceived low threshold by the general public. So everybody has embraced this very quickly. It's rare in technology. I mean, even mobile phones took a while. Even the internet took a while. This has taken the public, the world by storm, which is quite unique. So there is not a lot of negativism. There is a lot of criticism, but people are fundamentally optimistic about it. And then, that's true for corporates, the big fear of missing out. So every company, every conference, every employee is very, very afraid of missing this out. This is something big that we cannot miss. It's also quite intense in this technology. Now, I'm going to be a bit less enthusiastic. This is the hype cycle of Gartner. Most of you will know it. This was the picture at the end of 2023, so I think enthusiasm has only gone up since then. It was then really at the peak of the hype cycle. So typically you expect then to go down into what we call the valley of despair. You try things, it doesn't work, and only after a while you come to what we call the valley of productivity. Now, is this going to be different? Is Gen AI kind of hang glide above this valley of despair and get very quickly into productivity, or will we go through this phase? Most consultants are quite optimistic, so you see big numbers, 20, 30, 40% productivity gains. I picked this one up from Forrester that says, well, less than 1% of insurers will have tangible, direct, I would say short-term benefits of Gen AI. I kind of disagree with this. I think they're a bit too negative, but probably 3 months ago I would say, yeah, it's maybe there's a bit of a fad to it. So we'll see, but it feels different. Also quite different is the space this is in. So I stole this slide from one of our IT guys. Okay, who is active in this AI, Gen AI space? Don't try to search for the name of your company or any company. But this is just a picture of an industry that's immature. Just so much people active. Every day there are new people coming into this space. Inevitably, we have a big shakeout in this industry, which is quite difficult for companies like us, which don't like to make too big mistakes when partnering up with people. So selecting the right partners, the right experiments, it's more challenging. So we don't like to be locked in to one of these companies that seem successful now, but down the road they might be taken over or just close the door. So it feels it is something different. Definitely boards, senior management feels it is something different. We should invest in it. But there are also quite some risks attached to it. This is a slide I stole from AG. AG is our mother company in the group. Most of the slides I stole from them. And yesterday was their 200th anniversary. So courtesy to them, I'll include that in the slides. So these are all the risks. I will not comment on all of them. We all know about fraud, deepfake. We know the case of the $25 million that got wired because somebody in Hong Kong thought he was speaking to his boss. There was an AI he was speaking to. There's many cases. There's still the issue of hallucination. I was told, don't worry, ChatGPT 4.0 or whatever will be much better. Apparently it is not. That's what I'm told. They say it will get better. I'm confident, particularly when you use your own data to feed the AI tools, and your data backbone is okay, then it could be lowered. But it's still there. I think the big problem with hallucination is some of these tools just don't accept saying, I don't know. They always come up with an answer. And if it's not that, just make it up. On legal, many issues, the AI directive, GDPR, DORA, so I won't go into that. There's an interesting question about what about the intellectual property of this content? Who owns it? The one writing the prompt, the tool, the company? Sustainability. So we are a group that has as one of its core lemmas or slogans, not a slogan, it's really we believe in it, sustainability in everything we do. As you know, Gen AI specifically uses massive amounts of data, massive amounts of computing power. Your cloud consumption really goes through the roof if you don't block that. So how can you contain that? And actually we do. We monitor that quite closely. We have this, what's called sustainable IT, and the use of the cloud, driven by all these GenAI tools, is one of the top topics. And then there are two things that I would discuss in slightly more detail. Job displacement. So, will GenAI replace all of us? The answer I got actually from my IT lady, I said, no, AI will not replace you. Somebody that's better in using AI will replace you. I said, yeah, that's fair enough. It seems like the correct answer. It's a bit like a farmer plowing with a horse. He will be replaced, he is being replaced by a farmer with a tractor. You still need a farmer, but you need much less farmers. So you will have a displacement of persons having to move into other jobs. So you really have to do a lot on training, and we actually spend quite a lot on training practically everybody on AI, Gen AI tools. And if you're in markets like we are in Asia that are growing, you can absorb the extra capacity. In Europe, we have a shortage of people. There's this war for talent. So most people we can somehow reallocate. We did a survey within the group, that's the whole group, including our Asian JVs, all functions, all ages, about 1,000 people. And it was actually quite positive. So about 50% said that they actually already use Gen AI. Now, probably it's playing around with ChatGPT, I don't know, because we certainly don't have 50% of our functions in the job working with Gen AI. There was only a slight difference in age with the above 60s. There you saw a drop. Same thing for enthusiasm. About 40% is really enthusiastic about it. Only 10 and 15% in the case of the over 60s are worried about it. So there's quite some positive buy-in on this technology. It's a fertile ground. So investing in training will surely pay off. So I'm not that pessimistic about the job displacement. The real issue for me is ethics. This is essentially a big ethical question. Responsible AI, it's very big on the agenda. It's very big on every board's agenda, I can assure you. You need certain, you can call it guardrails, limits, red lines, policies, whatever. So it's like a formal structure to control this. But that's not enough. You need to have transparency. There is no way around it. You cannot say, I don't know, it's the algorithm. I mean, it will not fly. And I'll show you a lot of regulators also do not allow that. You must explain why you take certain decisions. You cannot say you have this algorithm and statistically, no. You really must be transparent. And the boards want you to be transparent. And being transparent means also that you document, that you actually can prove that you are transparent. It means you will have a kind of, call it ethical audit trails. So was this decision that the tool made, had it any bias? And we all know these tools are heavily biased. There's this great example. If you ask Gen AI, how do you solve global warming? It is not going all to Iceland, as we might say, some have been here. What would be the solution, you think? What would the AI say? How do you solve global warming? You eliminate the human race. Problem solved. These tools tend to have cornered solutions, as it's called. They try to find extreme solutions with very extremely good outcomes. But there is big ethical issues in this. So you must corner that. You must limit that. So you need this kind of ethical audit trails. You will need kind of model control boards that we know in insurance for Solvency II. You will need these independent people to actually check if all these algorithms have no biases. There's no way around it. And I assure you, if you're sloppy here, the regulator will come sooner or later, and it's not only going to be your image, which is already bad enough, but you'll be fined or you'll be losing your license. So this is a bit the risk. So yes, there is, and they are bigger for Gen AI. So they're kind of augmented. And there are costs tied to this, to cope with this. These are extra costs. This is expensive to do. Now, just some use cases, and I'm not going to the detail. Here it says 123 at Ageas. It's about 150 now. So all over the place, Asia, Europe. These are the running use cases. Some are in experimental stage. Some are actually already in production. It is not difficult to find experiments. Everybody has hundreds of ideas. The trick is creating value at scale, capturing value at scale, and mitigating risks at scale. That is the trick. And I think that if you do that, you might avoid staying too long in the so-called valley of despair. Now, here, and this is a more pedestrian slide that I've made out of many other slides, trying to combine all those 150 or whatever use cases we have running. What do they have in common? And you know, I'm not going into the detail, but it's typical data extraction, call insights, content transcription, so you'll recognize them. What do they have in common? Let's face it, it is about productivity. Yes, there is CX indirectly. Yes, you can have better fraud protection. There are indirect benefits, but the real big benefit is productivity. Now, 2 or 3 months ago, I would say, yeah, is it a real productivity or is it marginal? No, it can be material. In some end-to-end processes, we see 20, 30% savings, which is material. Having said that, productivity gains can be quite elusive. I always like to use the example of PowerPoint or the productivity suite of Microsoft, Excel, Word, supposed to improve productivity. Not so sure if PowerPoint improved productivity. For sure, we made much more presentations. They looked fancier, but was it really a bottom line productivity? Question mark. So any tool that says, yeah, I'm going to save time, that's good, but only if really the real output increases. So you really have to be very specific about what kind of benefits you want in any of these use cases, and have some metrics tied to it, and monitor that. Particularly if you want to do it at scale. You must do the things of which you are sure this will make a difference. And by the way, on value creation today, about 80% of value creation is still what you could call traditional AI-based, machine learning, pricing, fraud. More the hardcore underwriting stuff. That's still 80% of the value. And about 20%, we believe, is in more the Gen AI, the content-generating stuff. I'm told that will invert. At some point in time, we will learn to do that better and quicker. We'll come up with new use cases, and Gen AI will actually be much more value-creating than say, the traditional AI. We'll see. And then I think I promised to be quick. On this cost-benefit, I was doubting about the benefits only a few months ago, so I'm more convinced that you see use cases that fuel our productivity. So on the benefit side, people are less worried. But the cost side, where again a few months ago said, yeah, it is more computer time, yeah, there is more risk, etc. It is becoming much more uncertain. These are all the pricing models that you can have. So we love the flat rate pricing, because that we understand and you can budget, etc. But as soon as you get like usage-based or user-based, it becomes like very, uncertain. The worst is something we had, it's called token-based pricing. I don't know if anyone's familiar. It's very popular in Gen AI tools. I think ChatGPT or variations use that. What is that? Actually, I think 1,000 tokens are more or less 750 words. And the price we received for one provider, we were talking, a use cases where we saw, this has good benefits. So, and the licensing cost, how does that look? It was 0.001 cent per token. So, no idea. did a calculation. It was 14 million, 14 million per year. And so there's just no way we're going to do this. There's no way. Then they came back, and the pricing structure totally changed, and now we're discussing. So this whole pricing mechanism is very in a state of flux. And remember these market capitalizations I showed you. So these big expectations. These are the people, you're all familiar with the gold rush. These are the people selling the spades and the gloves, right? They are going to make the money, not the gold diggers. We are a bit the gold diggers, so we have to watch out not to overpay for the gloves and the spades. And so there's big expectations, and you see that coming through in this pricing mechanism and locking in mechanisms which we're a bit wary of. So we are kind of more uncertain, certainly more cautious on the cost side of it. And then to wrap up, and this is really a very pedestrian slide that I made myself, so you'll see it's not ChatGPT, I can assure you. And this has changed in my head the coming months, the last months, and it probably will change in the next months. Whereas I said, yeah, productivity, it's not really there. I said, yeah, productivity is there, and then costs are a bit high. So it is in an equilibrium. I think today investing in some of these use cases, if you are confident that you can scale it up and risk under control, pays off. And there is this other big aspect linked to this fear of missing out and enthusiasm that you see among your people. As a company today, you can just not afford not to use it. So we're rolling out like Microsoft Copilot across the company, massive training programs. If you don't do that, people just will not like to join you. It's a bit like the PC in the time. When PCs got introduced, I don't know, some of you are old enough to remember the first PCs. I at least am. The IT was like, no, we don't want these PCs, it's control. But if you didn't have a PC, the young actuators did not come. So you had to do it. And so, maybe it's productivity enhancing, we're not sure, but we've got no choice. I think that's the same for this. There's so much enthusiasm, expectations are so high, you just have to experiment and use it. And for sure, I think the business case will prove positive. So to wrap up, it is high on the agenda. Boards are very worried about this, but they really want to know a lot about it. There is not an offsite or a board meeting where about half of the time is spent on related topics, and the other half of the time, I must admit, it's on compliance and risk. So when you talk about real business, that's limited space. It feels like it is something different. Risks are a bit the classical risks we have in all IT-related topics, but they are magnified here, particularly the ethical side. Because if you really get that wrong, if you're really sloppy, the regulator will, I assure you, will hit you. And the place to watch is the UK. The FCA is very, very, very worried about this. They demand from insurers to demonstrate so-called positive outcomes. What you do is good for the customer, and you must prove it. So it's an enormous burden of proof. And that's a bit, in Belgium they look at it, in the Netherlands they look at it, in Asia they're looking at it, so that you must really get that right. And then on this trade-off, I think there's going to be much more productivity or gains, and eventually also in CX and in other aspects of the business, so the benefits will be there. And the costs will, at some point in time, will be known, controlled, as there is like more of a shakeout in the industry. The big risk there is you have like a lock-in with certain vendors where we already are for many areas, and kind of part of your costs are no longer under control. Thank you for your patience. I hope it was useful.